Want to achieve network marketing success? Then you're in the right company. Hello, and welcome to Leave Nothing to Chance, hosted by networking marketing giant, John Solleder. Learn everything you need to know about the network marketing space from somebody who's actually done it. Join us every week for front row seats as we feature some of the finest and most successful personalities in network marketing. Leave nothing to chance. Join us now.
Well, it is a pleasure to introduce a living legend, an icon in the network marketing industry, somebody whose counsel I seek on a regular basis. And that is my good friend, Mr. Dan McCormick. Dan, how are you today?
Terrific. I really appreciate you inviting me to be with you.
Well, it's my pleasure, needless to say. Hey, Dan, before we get started, why don't you share with everybody how long you've been in the industry and how you got introduced to it?
So like all of us, we've got to start. We've got a story, right? I mean, that's the great thing about life. Everybody's got a story. And I was just this young kid growing up in Seattle, Washington, single parent home, lived with my grandparents a lot of the time. And I started actually right after I finished my college experience in 1982, August of 1982. So I think I'm in year, 39, something like that.
Yeah, wow, it's a long time ago. You got me beat by about a year. And Dan, in the new book, which you're featured in, of course, Leave Nothing to Chance. What's your favorite principle and why?
Well, first of all, I love the word principle, and I hope I can share this with your audience to some degree, because when you talk about principles throughout the book, which was what fired me up about the book, because I like to think that. So I met an individual that was what's the guys that the language experts, what are they called?
Linguists.
A linguist. Thank you. He knew every Indo-European language.
Wow.
He's a professor. And I had a chance to meet with him when he was 92. And I had a chance to ask him anything I wanted about words. And I asked him about the word principle. And with his rolled up jeans, his white socks, and his Converse Chuck Taylor sneakers on, you could picture the man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I asked him, I said, so where does the word principle come from? And he kind of closed his eyes, paused, and looked down. And he said the word out loud. He said, PRIN, P-R-I-N, strong channel. And then he went on and he said, P-L-E, moving you forward.
Huh.
And so the great thing about principles in your book is that they're all things that move our lives forward.
Wow.
And when you think about Leave Nothing to Chance, that's the best title. I mean, I love that title because a lot of times we can be casual with life. We can be casual with our health. We can be casual with relationships. And casual effort leads to casualties. And you just don't want to leave anything to chance. It's like Jim Rohn, our good friend, says, right? When you go to the ocean, you don't want to bring just a teaspoon. You want to bring a bucket.
Yes, he did.
So you don't want to leave anything to chance. When you read the book, you have your highlighter, you have this quiet space, you have a chance to contemplate, you have a chance to ask questions of, okay, and this is a great question you start off with, because Stephen Covey, my wife had as a professor at BYU.
Mm.
So imagine this, my wife has Stephen Covey as a professor in psychology, whatever the class was called, human relations or whatever. And he always asks you, when you look at a word, look at the opposite. So let's take the title, Leave Nothing to Chance. Let's say, let's leave everything to chance. It's going to be a long day. Let's leave everything to chance and you eat 14 pizzas a day. It's going to be a tough row to hoe when it comes to your weight, your health. And so if you think of word principle, strong channels moving you forward, the opposite of that would be strong channels moving you backwards. And so your book is so good because of that. The title grabbed me, and the fact that you use principles. And I remember when you first came out with it, we had a podcast, and it was a lot of fun to talk about that very thing. So I love the word principle. And you've got principle number one, wake up excited for each and every day and make it a practice. And so, there's that book out now called the 5 a.m. Club. And I think that a lot of people that are fired up for life are fine getting up at 5:30 in the morning and starting their ritual.
Well, I personally prefer it. The earlier, the better.
Yeah.
So Dan, let me ask you this. We're talking about words. I know you have a favorite word. What is it?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, principles, that's a fun one. But so my friend wrote a book, Kevin Hall. If you haven't read Aspire, it's just so much fun. You can have him on your show anytime you want. Aspire, he introduced a word at the beginning of the book that few people have ever heard of. It's called Genshai. And I've maintained this word to be unique and powerful to anyone that watches this. Genshai is an ancient Indian word that means, imagine this word, never to treat another person small.
Wow.
And guess what? It starts with you and me. So that was my favorite word until yesterday.
Okay.
And I have somebody on my podcast yesterday, and I had to call Kevin Hall, who came out with the book Aspire for Genshai. I called him. We had this massive chat this morning. I said, I got a word for you, man. I got a word for you. So John, I got a word for you.
Okay.
On my podcast yesterday, which we do live on Facebook and YouTube, and then it goes on later. We'll talk about it. Anyway, I have this remarkable individual generating tens of millions of dollars a year in revenue. And he says, Dan, we kind of have this word, this philosophy that we use in our team. And it's called Ubuntu. U-B-U-N-T-U, Ubuntu. And I'm like, lay it on us. I'm a word guy. I got to hear what Ubuntu means. So everybody's got their notepad out. They're writing down. So here you go. For all of our friends and fans that might be listening on your podcast today, you're going to leave nothing to chance. And in the margins somewhere, you can write Ubuntu. And it simply means, I am because of you.
Huh.
You are because of me. John, if you're my upline sponsor in a direct selling company, I am because of you. And if I'm generating $1 million a month in sales, you are because of me.
Love it.
I just love words because they add such culture to the meaning of life and the fanaticism that I have for humanity and life. It's just so. Anyway, thanks for asking.
Well, that's a great. I'm gonna steal that one.
Oh, we all have to.
It's too good. I have my book club in a few hours. I'm going to use that one tonight. Yeah. So Dan, let me ask you this. Talking about books, because I know, like myself, you love to read, and you always have your face in something new, something old. But let's go back. Young Dan McCormick, kind of trying to find his way, bumps into the direct selling field, perhaps even before the direct selling field. Somebody put a book in your hands and you had that aha moment where you said, my life could be better. What was that book?
It's really a great question. And I owe my mom a lot because she taught me how to read the sports page in third grade. Prior to that, there was nothing I could read that I would have any recall on. I had ADHD, ADD, whatever they would have called it back then. No, I was never diagnosed with that. I was never on medication for that. But I remember sitting in my bedroom one night, really challenging myself to see if I could read my homework assignment in third grade. And I sat there and read those pages over and over and over, and I just couldn't get it. I couldn't get it. It was a painful, very deep wound in my life. When my mom taught me, now growing up in the Seattle area, we had two newspapers, the Seattle Times and the Seattle PI, and I would read the Seattle Times. And we didn't have the Mariners in the early 70s, so I was a baseball guy. I loved the Cincinnati Red Big Red Machine. And I could remember the starting lineup, their batting averages, their positions, their numbers. And I could read the box score for the Seattle Supersonics basketball team. Bill Russell was our coach. I could remember the players. And then I got a job at the Seattle Supersonics Racket and Health Club. And then somehow I made it through school. I don't know how. I seriously don't know how. They just didn't send me to special ed. I just couldn't learn. And I went to my network marketing meeting. And that night, this man told me in the parking lot, first meeting I ever go to, he holds this book. Actually, he had The Greatest Secret, which is just over my shoulder there, which is the journalized version of The Greatest Salesman in the World. And Og Mandino had a philosophy for living and a philosophy for writing that was simple. It was parable. And there was a few words in there that I wouldn't get, like equanimity and a few others as a young man. But I learned then that if I did decide to be a student, that leaders were readers and readers were leaders, as you and I know that Jim was very fond of saying that. So that was my first book. It honestly challenges you 75-1 odds that Og Mandino gives you that you will finish those scrolls the way he designed them. I failed my first time, but the second time I nailed it. And I know that anyone can do it if they really, truly want it bad enough. They can leave nothing to chance in their life and their business if they have total focus on it.
Wow. We're going to come back to Og in a few minutes, but let me ask this. You're on a deserted island, a nice one.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some nice ones. So somehow you get to a deserted island, okay? And they say, Dan, here's the deal. You can go to the island. We'll give you plenty of food, but you can only bring 3 books with you in addition to your Holy Bible, let's say, okay? Nice. So what 3 books are they in addition?
So I had a book that was on tape before it was a book back in the 1985 timeframe. I think that's when 7 Habits of Highly Effective People came out. And Stephen was a deep thinker, Stephen Covey, deep thinker, enormous intellect. And those 7 habits of highly effective people captured me. And because, and oftentimes when I do public seminars, I'll ask the audience how many have a copy of the 7 habits, and just about every hand's going to go up. Mm-hmm. But if you ask an audience how many people know the 7 habits, only one person's ever answered it correctly.
Wow. Only one.
It was a high school girl in Denver, Colorado, and her parents were school teachers, and she named all 7 like that. Then I would say, obviously, so I'd say The Greatest Salesman in the World, obviously, because that was the first book. It was massive. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Then there's a very, very rare book that was written in the 1981 timeframe. One of my main mentors in life is a man named Sterling W. Sill. And Sill was a kind of like you and I in the world of direct selling, but he sold insurance. And he was asked the question you just asked me in 1927. If you're going to go to a private island, no kidding, I got goosebumps telling you the story. And the question to him was, you can only take 10 books. And so between 1928 and 1968, he was a remarkable leader in the New York Life Insurance Company. Amazing. Out of Utah. So he covered Utah, Idaho, Arizona. And he wrote, I think, 33 books. And they're all in my library here. Each year he wrote a new book. He wrote 1 chapter a week. And at the end of the year, there's 50 chapters. He'd take a couple weeks off. So every week, every book had 50 chapters, and it was called Lessons from Great Lives is the one that captured me. And what it was a question for you and I. And the question was, if you could design your life in the eyes of the Hall of Fame for greatest people that have ever lived, who would you be? Mm. And he used the Hall of Fame for Great Americans in New York City as a template for the idea. So I went back to the Hall of Fame for Great Americans. It's now a defunct, underfunded, out of business since 1972, 3, 4, something like that. And everyone that's watching your podcast today has seen the library. Because if you watch the movie Beautiful Mind, they used it to film part of the school classes in there. And there's 103 people that were ever nominated to be in the Hall of Fame for Great Americans. And so Sill wrote, and he put, I think, 30 people in that book, Lessons from Great Lives. I then bought the rights to that book and rewrote the book, and I took 13 of the lives out, kind of like the the Babe Ruths of the world. He had athletes in there as well. I took the athletes out and I kept the thinkers. So I added his life and I added Socrates' life because he loved Socrates. And so those would be my three. It'd be lessons from great lives, greatest salesman in the world, or the greatest secret in the world. They're the same. And then 7 habits of highly effective people, along with my Bible. And I've got some rich material each and every day, baby.
Yeah, well, you'd be in good shape. As long as there's plenty of coconuts and pineapples, right?
That's right.
And we can talk about a little Wim Hof training too, but we'll come to that maybe later too.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our industry for a minute, Dan. We're living in a unique time, with this whole COVID pandemic last, whatever it's been, 15, 16 months already. And I think there's a lot of people who are looking at our industry maybe for the first time. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Love your response to this. First example are the young folks, the 25-year-olds, right? They're, 25, 23, 28, whatever. They're maybe college educated, maybe not, but they certainly all could take, their iPhone and launch a space shuttle with it, right? And they know every application on that thing. I know maybe half the ones that are on mine, frankly, but they're very, very bright young people. But maybe they're living in mom and dad's spare bedroom right now because they haven't been able to really figure out their path. And then all of a sudden the pandemic happens and the path gets very difficult. Flip that around to the people our age group, 60-ish, 50-ish, 70-ish. Maybe they've been successful in business. Maybe they owned their own business, perhaps. Maybe they were senior level management in somebody else's business. They're getting to the end of the road of their working years. Everything's looking good. The economy's on fire here till about 16 months ago. And all of a sudden, what happens. So those two people walk into your office today. You've been doing network marketing all these years. You've been super, super, super successful at the top of every organization you've built. Made all the fortunes that you've made. And you got these two individuals that come to you and say, Dan, why network marketing? Why now? What are the steps to take?
Well, it's a great question. And I'm reading a book right now that really covers that beautifully. And it's called The Psychology of Money. It's a new book that's just out. And it compares time frames and paradigms to the wealth of Warren Buffett. If he would have been born 10 years later or 10 years earlier, we may have never heard of Warren Buffett. He goes through paradigm after paradigm like that. But here's the great thing about network marketing today. And this is the beauty of small business entrepreneurship. With the creativity of the 25-year-old today with social, or the paradigm of somebody that's my age, 57, 58, 60, 65, whatever. There has to be this paradigm, in my opinion, and that is that vision is always future focused. I so love the word vision because obviously it's a great scripture in the Bible, and that is those without vision perish, etc. But vision is always future focused. If I'm 25 years old today, and one of the things that is of most precious to everybody, regardless of your income or anything, one of the things that's most precious is time. And so I think the fascinating thing for the 25-year-old or the 65-year-old is if you have a vision of being future focused, if you have a vision of serving more people, if you have a vision of taking your product or service to the masses to solve more problems, our old friend Mark Hughes said, hey, solve big problems, you make a big paycheck. Solve small problems, you get a small paycheck. And so if you come into our industry, most companies are solving big problems with their products in the world of direct selling. And so my first thing is you have to have that motivating desire. And desire ultimately means a motivating conviction that moves you to action. Now, if you got the idea that you can wake up at the crack of 10 every morning and you're going to be casual with life, it's going to be a tough road to hoe. You got to work on you and you got to have that desire that motivates you. The second thing I would say to your question is each and every system for each and every company with each and every leader, there's someone that has developed a plan of action strategy that's smarter than I am. And that would be my first phone call. My steps would be know my desire, know who I'm calling, because if somebody has done it better than me, and I'm new, I'm 25-year-old newbie or a 65-year-old newbie, I want to follow the guy at the top of the plan that's created the system that duplicates the model. And if I understand how to be in the social retailing world that we're in right now, because we know that the world wants to see network marketing companies create this massive flood of customers, which you and I are seeing right now in numbers we've never seen before because of so many talented people on social media, et cetera. So I think those would be a couple of things for me. First, the desire, the motivating action that moves you, the motivating conviction that moves you to action, calling that upline, knowing what that system is. And down the list, people think that they have to become product evangelists. And that's not the top of my thing. If you show me results from other people, I just got to know what that top guy is doing and what that system rings out to me.
Great. So second part of that question, kind of, Dan. So these people say, okay, Dan, sign me up, ready to go. Now, an expression you and I used to use that I don't know if we use this anymore, of ink striking paper, because in the old days, right, you wrote everything out and got a credit card or a check. Now it's more like, hit the button and they're started. But either way, they start the business today with your company, you sponsor them. How do you get them off to a fast start? What's your best methodology to get them so that they see those results and start to gain that very important thing called confidence that they actually can do this thing and succeed?
Yeah, well, I think that one of the things that obviously our mentors and the pioneers of the world of network marketing would want anyone to experience is something positive in your first 24 to 48 hours. If I can take this product that's going to change your life and I buy it for 10 and I sell it for 20, I had a very positive experience, okay? If I put somebody on a Zoom call and I had a friend of mine that sold real estate, cut my hair, don't have a lot of it, but I do get it cut, whatever, and I can put them on a Zoom call, great. If I can put them in a social media page, great. Anything that feels positive, I want to accentuate that. I want to recognize that activity, and I want to do it as quickly as I can. I want to congratulate them, and I want to tell them, you just sold this product that you paid 10 for and you got 20 back, okay? Just so you know, and here's John that does tens of millions of dollars a year in business, right? That's what he does every day too. Guess what? He started just like you, and he had to sell that little bottle of hand sanitizer, okay? And lo and behold, he does the same thing today, 38 years later. He looks to get customers. He looks to get distributors. And if I do some, I'll make some money. If I do it a lot and I do it with the right system and the right people, and I can stay focused on the consistency chain, then I'm absolutely going to get where I want to go.
Wow. Great answer. So let me ask you this, Dan. You've been inspired, educated, worked extremely hard on your self-development all of these years, and I know you're still tenacious about it. And one of the great reasons I have so much respect for you is, some of our colleagues, honestly, they're comfortable and they're kind of, you talk to them and they're at the beach and they're having a good time, and that's great. They all work hard, they're entitled to it. But you and I are two of those guys that are still not only building our respective downline organizations and very, very active in that process, but always working on making a better Dan. And one of the things that you've done is you've adopted, to me, one of my 3 favorite books all time. Okay. And that of course is, The World's Greatest Salesman by Og Mandino. Those scrolls are life-changing. And you actually went the distance of getting involved with that company and marketing. And anyway, I'm going to be quiet. And I'd love for you to share with our audience, because folks, if you're listening to our show, this is educational. It's to make you a better you. It's to make you a better product. And one of the things that Dan brings to the table, not only is his amazing knowledge, but his amazing relationship and what he's doing to spread the word on this. So Dan, I'm going to throw it to you. Anything you want to share about your podcast, about your relationship with the Mandino Foundation, et cetera, just let it rip.
Well, you're right. I mean, I am addicted. I'm just addicted to life and playing it out each and every day. I love the feel of the old authors. Not that Leave Nothing to Chance can't be one of the greatest books of all time, because the title and the principles are that. But in terms of an iconic penmanship era, nobody writes like that. That's a parable that has a lesson for you. My kids got their first copy when they were probably between 7 and 13, 14 years of age, 12, something like that. They all have their own copy. We would sit around on Sunday night and read a scroll together. And, there was some hemming and hawing about that for sure. The kids don't want to necessarily sit with dad all the time and talk about scrolls and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But I did, it would have been 18 years plus ago. I met the owner of the Og Mandino company for today, and he knew Betty Mandino. And so he bought the rights to Og's materials. And lo and behold, he came on my show and he was a guest, Dave Blanchard, and we just developed this friendship. And probably for 15 years, John, I just sent him business. I just said, hey, coach this guy, coach this company, coach these people. And, their coaching is specific to a philosophical approach that is, how do you affirm people and relationships the way the Mandino books do? And so we got to know each other. And finally, I just said, hey, look, I send you so much business. I said, why don't you just pay me to be the ambassador for the company? I just said, I'm going to do it for free, but I'm happy to get a paycheck for sending you people. And the company is so busy. I mean, with their coaching, and it's all centered around just the Og Mandino philosophical way of life. Now, we now have 150,000 network marketing and direct selling people that are in our pilot study that have taken our assessment to measure your thoughts. And you know that 90+% of every network marketer has a vivid imagination. Very vivid. I mean, John, imagine the person that's thinking to themselves, man, if I could just build the downline like John, I could have that Corvette, I could have that Lamborghini, I could buy that private island in the Bahamas, and I don't have to talk to people anymore. These are vivid visualization people. And so what we're able to do is measure the thoughts, and then we can help people say, look, it's a great thing that you want to have all of that success. But guess what? Scroll number 9 says, I will act now. So all of the stuff about dream creation is critical because we believe in it. We all do, right? We know that everything has 2 creations, first in the mind and then in the physical. And it's really imperative that people understand it's a work program. And I don't think life is supposed to be easy. If anybody wants to just show me easy, just tell me where there's an easy story in the Bible. Mm-hmm. There's just everything that's happening in your life today, good or bad, challenging or not, happened in the Bible. So that's what I get a chance to do. So every Wednesday I go live on Facebook and YouTube. It's called The Greatest Salesman. And I love your recommendations. I love other people to give me a recommendation on. I had a 16-year-old kid. This is a great one. I'm on a podcast like a month ago like this for another company, another book, product company, whatever. And a 16-year-old kid reached out to me last week on Facebook. And he says, Mr. McCormick, he says, I love your podcast. I think it's the greatest thing in the world. I think my grandpa should be on your show. And you know what? I interviewed the guy. He's going to be on my show next month. You remember the Alpine air filter company?
Oh, sure. I bought one, yeah.
He was the number 1 guy.
Is that right? Okay.
So we had a great chat. I make a new friend and he's going to be on the show. So it's fun for me. And whether I'm talking about leave nothing to chance, or I'm talking about the greatest salesman, or I'm talking about, if I showed you my desk right now, most people would just go, my goodness, this guy's a nut job, right? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 journals on my desk right now. Because if life is worth living, life is worth recording.
Mm.
And Sterling W. Sill said, and probably somebody said it before, and maybe it was Napoleon Hill, but the dullest pencil is better than the sharpest mind.
Makes sense.
Hopefully I answered your question.
Well, I have enjoyed listening to your show. And there's so much. I mean, that little book, and it's funny because since I was on your show in October, I've probably have recommended that book as a first self-development book, probably to no less than 50 people, just like one-on-one. Like, I'm not even talking, big meetings,
right?
Are no big meetings, big conference calls, right? Big
right.
Zoom calls. But people are like, well, where do I start? And like, yeah, I'd love to tell them start with Leave Nothing to Chance, right? That'd be great. And I'd love to tell them my other book, Moving Up 2020. But it's like, you know what? If you don't start with getting you right, all that knowledge building a multi-level is not gonna really make much of a difference. And
I wonder if I could share a point to that, John.
Absolutely.
Because I think it's really important. So if you do the curriculum here, let's just say that you take the 10 scrolls and you do the 3 times a day for a month, from one scroll 3 times a day for a month. You got 10 months in front of you. Can I honestly share something? 7 years it took me before I felt that I could trust it all.
Wow.
So I think that, we all love speed. Money loves speed. When a system is working and money starts coming, it's like in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. Wow. When the money comes in, you say, hey, where is it coming? I mean, I had my biggest month of my life this year. I mean, just so much money, I couldn't believe it. And I just go, wow, it's really interesting how fast it can come. But you know what? I've also had some of my biggest challenges this year.
Mm.
And you just realize that it's just part of the process.
It sure is. It's a great answer. So, Dan, I know I didn't send you this question, but I have to ask you this. Okay. You've been incredibly successful. You've been successful for a long time. You're not an overnight sensation like some of the young people in network marketing that are doing really well, and I'm proud of them and I'm happy for them. But like myself, you've got a family. You're doing all the other things in life at this stage of the game. How does Dan keep his discipline when he no longer needs not that you don't need the income, but you no longer need necessarily the income on a monthly basis that you've built up, okay, to get the things you want to get. You've got the material things that you want. You've got the spiritual life, I know that's very, very important to you. You've got a wonderful family. What gets you up at 4:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and gets you doing everything from your physical disciplines to your mental disciplines after all this period of time? Because I think it's important. A lot of young, successful people or newly successful people, not necessarily age young, but newly successful, listen to the podcast. And for a year or two, you and I know, we've seen it. They'll do everything they need to do. And then all of a sudden, the money starts to get to here. And all of a sudden, the discipline starts to go down.
Yeah.
How have you kept it for this long as consistently as you have?
So, you're an amazing, our podcast that you and I had, I just couldn't. I actually have the notes for your podcast with me right here in this journal. And this is the answer that I'm going to give you is truly understanding this is my mission. And here it is. Because I fully believe at the deepest of my core that this life is a time to prepare to meet God.
Mm.
If I believe that, and I'm casual in my approach to life, my physical well-being, my wife, my kids, my business, if I truly know in my heart of hearts that this life is a time to prepare to meet God, then how could I not be? So it's truly the Stephen Covey approach would be habit number 2, which is to begin with the end in mind. But if you think about the end, there really is no end. It just is another day to serve another. What if I missed on the opportunity to meet the next 19-year-old Dan McCormick that couldn't read, that couldn't write, that couldn't absorb, and I get to add something into his life, her life, that family's life, husband and wife couple, whatever it might be, that could make their lives different? My, oh my, it is so rich to be on the journey that you and I are on. It's just like, my wife came in my office this morning and she said, "What time did you get up?" I said, 4:30. I said, I got all my reading material on my couch over here. I got my journals out. I'm just ready to roll, baby. I mean, boom, I'm on. So I just hope that everybody in their own way, whatever their belief system is, that today I begin a new life. Scroll number 1, Og Mandino, an alcoholic, living a life, 10 years of a living hell. Today I begin a new life. It's no joke. It's real. And I believe it. So I live it.
Well, yeah, you certainly do. And
I try.
Going back to that thing, you just mentioned it with Og, and I have one very close person to me who's in the same club that he was eventually in. And, you and I think of him in our industry, but there's a whole world out there of people who have gone through, proverbial hell with alcoholism.
Yeah.
That are inspired that not only that he was part of the club, but that he wrote about it in such a way and he affected tens of thousands of people around the world that way that, you and I don't necessarily miss, but that wasn't our lives. Fortunately, it wasn't our lives. Right. But I got that. And one of the people that I had shared the book with happened to have been this relative of mine who came back and said, "I found all these people were familiar with this guy and I didn't know it." And I said, yeah. So amazing life that he led and amazing life that you've led, my friend. And you continue to inspire me. Love everything that you're doing. Love your leadership more than everything else and your vision and your continual desire to help people. So I'm going to give you the last word and then I'm going to close.
Well, it just is okay if somebody's listening right now to be where you are. And I think Wally Waddles said it beautifully in Financial Success, or what's the other title of that book? The Science of Getting Rich.
The Science of Getting Rich.
Chapter 7. You can't go beyond where you currently are until you're grateful for what you currently have. And I would just leave that with everybody today to say, you are good enough right where you are. And I would just say, I hope and pray we get the chance to meet on the journey and we can celebrate your success while doing it. And that success is measured really in making others' lives better. So John, you've done that for me. Leaving nothing to chance is doing that for others. Your podcast is fantastic and your book is beautiful. The principles are all right there for everybody. And I really appreciate you having me on today. And hopefully I've said something that can be a positive impact for someone somewhere.
Absolutely. It always is, Dan. It's always a pleasure. And this has been Dan McCormick and John Solleder. The name of our show, the name of my show, is Leaving Nothing to Chance. You can get to the archives, leavingnothingtochance.com. Our books are called Leave Nothing to Chance, a little different, Leave Nothing to Chance. And you can get that and Moving Up 2020 in English or Spanish, digital or hard copy, whatever you want. Okay. Maybe get a copy of both so you can mark it up. Dan used his yellow highlighter before. I don't know about you, Dan, but I still buy both. I'll buy the digital because it's easy for me to travel, but I buy the real copy so I can mark it up so my grandkids can read my notes down the road and say, here's what grandpa thought.
Gotta feel it. And absolutely. There is an interesting point to that. And I know the show's over, but putting pen to paper first thing in the morning, there's science on that, on how that changes you, right? Versus going to an electronic. If you can go to pen to paper, you're going to have a brain experience. And that's documented clearly on another book I can go into later. But thank you for the fun today. It was great.
Well, thank you, Dan. Thanks so much.
Awesome, man. Have a great day.
You too.
thank you for listening to this week's episode of Leave Nothing to Chance. If you want to know more about what it takes to succeed in the network marketing space, join us again next week for another amazing episode. For additional resources and to connect with John Solleder, visit leavingnothingtochance.com. Don't forget to leave a review, and we'll see you next time.